SCP-3000 is a dark SCP.
Yeah.
And the concept of destroying memories and human consciousness makes what would otherwise just be an enormous eel much more interesting.
At first, like, I got to like 10 minutes of it, and it was like, man, this is getting like way too long. This is just dragging. But like at the end, it's like, yeah, this SCP is way too deep. This SCP is way too dark, bro. Alright, we're back with another The Exploring series. And this one's exploring the SCP Foundation, SCP-3000. 3000. That was Anantashesha. This one is suggested by Ayla Person, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to say this one because it's like a good number, 3000. All right, let's start.
SCP-3000.
3000.
Anantashesha.
Anantashesha,
the SCP
yeah.
Foundation is aware of a number of entities that could be considered gods, or godlike in some way.
Ooh.
Some of these are actually contained by them, while
This one's a godlike, huh?
uncontainable, either existing outside of our physical dimension, or for some other reason.
Assuming this one's too big to contain,
though, the Foundation
by this
treats them
picture.
with extreme caution, as they represent little more than threats to our existence. There is an exception, however, in SCP-3000. Its status as something godlike is debatable, which we'll discuss later.
Is this one
But
safe?
it is a rare example of a thaumiel entity, an anomalous creature that the Foundation utilizes to help their operations.
Okay, thaumiel is like, what was it? I saw it in the comments before. So thaumiel is the containment itself, right? So, is this thing asleep or something? Is this one's on like hibernation or something like that? Like the Scarlet King?
Simply put, SCP-3000 is a massive eel located in the Bay of Bengal near India.
Big ass eel.
3000's full size is unknown, but is believed to be between 600 and 900 kilometers long.
That is a big ass eel.
2.5 meters in diameter. 3000 is not necessarily contained per se. But
Yeah.
since it rarely moves, the Foundation simply patrols the region of the bay where it's located and prevents any diving expeditions in the area.
Yeah, I'm assuming this thing is
It
sleeping,
was
right?
discovered in 1971 after a number of Bangladeshi fishermen went missing after drifting near the Indian coast, and the Foundation stepped in to investigate. Its biology is not well understood by the Foundation, but they hypothesize that it doesn't actually require any sustenance in order to continue living, but it is carnivorous.
Or maybe he just
It's unknown
eats.
exactly what happens to prey it consumes.
He just doesn't eat that
But
much.
during feeding, 3000 excretes a thin layer of a viscous substance that the Foundation has dubbed Y909.
This one
Its
goo.
existence is a massive eel, hundreds of kilometers long,
The eel
would
goo.
certainly classify it as an SCP alone, much like SCP-169. But that's only the beginning of its anomalous traits. We've discussed cognitohazards a few times before, anomalous effects that can alter an individual's mind
It's like
or
the
way of thinking.
world
And
serpent.
SCP-3000 itself is a cognitohazard. Direct observation of it will result in head pain, paranoia, fear, panic, and memory loss or alteration. And even being in a certain vicinity of the eel can result in these effects. These effects are further described in a log discussing the initial discovery and encounter with SCP-3000. A team descended in a submersible, and all of them were feeling uneasy. But one in particular began sweating profusely, stating that he was missing something, but he couldn't figure out what. He begins to act more erratically as they descend, expressing
Wait,
doubts about what
so
exactly
that's like
he's supposed
its
to do down
defense
there.
mechanism. It makes you go crazy.
Other members of the team began to express similar feelings. When they finally saw the body
Look at
of the
this
eel,
one. Look at this
erratic
picture.
individual began whimpering and had to be sedated as he muttered the word "no" over and over.
Yeah, we should stay away
When they
from this
finally
one.
approached the head, several other members were complaining about feeling hazy, unsure of what they were doing here. The captain wrote it off as nitrogen intoxication. SCP-3000 turned its head to look at them, and the sedated member began barking and shrieking, claiming that it was in its head, until he smashed
Nope.
his face into one of the potholes.
Not this one. This one needs to be like just close the whole river or whatever it's in.
He said, "There's nothing, nothing, nothing." Despite this incident, a diving expedition was ordered to personally assess the creature and investigate the source of the thick gray fluid that had been observed around its head. 3 members of MTF Orion 9, Kingfishers, were sent down.
Kingfishers?
The water was dark and cold,
that's their
which was to be expected.
Team
but other
called?
problems began almost immediately as the team becomes confused over their call signs, both mixing up who has what designation, and one of them even being confused by the word designation. The leader also addresses someone back at the command station who had been dead for 2 years.
Uh-oh.
Regardless, command tells the team to continue towards the entity, but each of them are completely confused about where they are. As they continue approaching, one of the members begins to utter ominous phrases concerning oblivion and dark eyes. SCP-3000 begins to rapidly approach them, and their radios go silent for 30 seconds. When they come back, it's clear that the team is in chaos, and one of the members has been eaten. The leader seems to have completely forgotten who he is, where he is, and what he's doing.
This one's not peaceful at all. Like, it will eat you if you
and he still seems to be somewhat coherent,
come to it, okay?
It's extremely difficult to form thoughts while near 3000. He says that it's coiled inside of his head, and that it's just sitting there in front of him. He sees the fluid seeping out of its skin around its head, and he goes to retrieve a sample, sending it up towards the surface.
Bro, what is this fluid? They keep like
by saying not to send anyone else out here.
Bringing it out.
His breathing could be heard over his radio for 3 days before ceasing. I mentioned at the start that SCP-3000 is a thaumial entity, meaning it somehow assists the SCP Foundation in their operations. And you may be wondering how a giant eel that messes with your head does so. The answer is in the gray fluid excreted from the entity, called the
what is it?
Y909 compound.
Okay. So like, I'm assuming now, this is for like the green fluid is for like what's that called? This like the drug they use to make people forget, right?
The Foundation utilizes a large number of amnestics during their work.
Amnestics.
Chemicals that cause an individual to forget certain things.
Exactly.
These chemicals are vital for keeping the secrecy of the Foundation and the SCPs intact, as well as helping many SCP personnel cope with things they have experienced. For a number of years, the Foundation's
like a drug, right?
were rudimentary, breaking down fairly quickly in storage, causing a number of side effects, and had often questionable efficacy overall. The inclusion of the Y909 compound has greatly increased the stability and effectiveness of the Foundation's amnestics, however,
this is definitely important.
allowing them to store for much longer, a significant decrease in side effects, an increase in suggestibility and memory clearance, and little to no intrusive memories years after their use. The Foundation has come to completely rely on the Y909 compound, with no means to synthetically reproduce it, and so the ATZAC protocol is introduced. The protocol is simple enough. It involves deliberately feeding a sedated D-class to SCP-3000, which causes it to excrete the Y909 compound. A specialized team of deep-sea divers then approached the entity within 2.5 hours after feeding, during which its effects are lessened. They collect as much as they can of the fluid and return to the surface. The rest of the SCP-3000 report concerns 2 doctors, a researcher, Dr. Krishnamurthy, and his staff
Damn,
clinical
they actually have a
psychologist,
picture of the
Dr.
doctor
Manava.
or the picture.
The psychologist was assigned to the researcher after he attempted to exit out of the SCP-3000 monitoring submarine without diving equipment.
Why would you
The
do that,
researcher
bro?
begins discussing how he feels tired, and his body is beginning to feel disconnected from his mind. He's forgetting things about his work and his life, and he's been having dreams featuring people he doesn't recognize, and places he's never been. It's clear that his proximity to 3000 is greatly affecting his memories, as he is unsure if he's even married, or if he has children, despite having 5 of them. He does see 3000 in his mind, however, and at this point he begins discussing Anantashesha, the king of serpents in Hinduism, that lies beneath the god Vishnu in the cosmos. He recalls that his mother told him once that when the light of the universe had gone out, Anantashesha would be all that is left, past the end of time. He believes that SCP-3000 is Anantashesha, a god that exists across all of time simultaneously.
A god that produces eel juice.
In defiance of the nothingness that comes after this, all of this, there is Anantashesha. There's a chance that my memories might live on, that I might be remembered like the memories I've seen have been through me. I don't have proof of this, but when I looked into its eyes and saw what it showed me, I was afraid. I'm merely a mediocre man, Anand. This was a fear that I have refused to acknowledge for years, a fear of irrelevance, that no one will know who I am when I die, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of my life being meaningless.
Alright, this is getting way too deep, bro.
Afraid of dying. There is a terror within me that I cannot reconcile, Anand. I won't lie to you and tell you that the maw of the Naga does not terrify me as well. But between this and the infinite dark I have gazed into, I have made up my mind. Dr. Krishnamurthy was held in containment for 2 days before being released. 3 hours later, he approaches the airlock to the submarine while weeping and prepares to open it. Proximity alarms begin to blare as SCP-3000 approaches the submarine. The doctor puts on a diving suit and exits the submarine before anyone can stop him. 3000 approaches him and opens its jaws wide. The last thing the doctor says is that he was wrong, and sobs as the eel consumes him. The rest of the crew begin preparing to carry out the ATSAC protocol. We're given some excerpts from Dr. Manava's journal.
What is this, Godzilla?
That he now has to figure out why Dr. Krishnamurthy
looked like a fish.
became suicidal, and how to prevent it from happening to any of the other personnel. He writes that he's not a very religious man, and doesn't believe SCP-3000 to be anything other than an anomalous eel. He racks his brain thinking about his father and his teachings of Hinduism, but cannot recall much, although he blames this less on the eel and more on his own willful forgetfulness. He was allowed to look through Krishnamurthy's effects and keep any that he wished, and so for some reason he decides to take a statue of the god Ganesh. Manava is aware that his continual proximity to SCP-3000 is draining his memories, both from his youth and more recently. He makes an attempt to learn some Hindu poems and songs, but can't seem to memorize any of them. We're given a memorandum from the site director that elaborates somewhat on the Y909
Bro, this is dragging, to be honest with you.
Protocol.
Like, I figured everything out about this 3001 like a long time ago. But I guess there's like a little more stories about it. But damn, this is dragging.
The Foundation originally believed it to be blood, but it's more akin to a prion slurry. Prolonged exposure to the compound is pretty similar to prolonged exposure to 3000. Some of the biologists believe that when SCP-3000 consumes a human, it is breaking down some part of their brains that makes them sapient. And the residual substance from this process is Y909.
So it's eel
They also
human
found
brain
that
juice.
SCP-3000 is not digesting these humans at all, and their bodies are still inside of it. In other words, SCP-3000 is capable of breaking down and devouring the human mind, causing them to forget their own existence.
But not
And
the
the
body?
Foundation is purposefully encouraging this in order to create powerful amnestics. The Ethics Committee and the Classification Committee are looking for ways to make this more tolerable, but since the Foundation really depends on these amnestics, the process continues. The final log is another journal page from Dr. Manava. He has been spending a great amount of time studying the effects of SCP-3000, but still has no idea what would cause a sane man to step out of an airlock into its mouth. Earlier that week, he had
It's a
knocked over
magic
picture
ill
of him
monster,
and his
bro.
family, and found
With a
that there was
psychic
writing
power.
on the other side, with his name, his wife's name, and his daughter's name. However, the writing was in Dr. Krishnamurthy's hand, not his own. This puzzled Manava, and he began to be stressed by the uncertainty of it. Finally, he went into the personnel archives and discovered the truth. The woman was in fact Krishnamurthy's first wife, and the girl was one of his daughters. Manava had believed that they were his wife and daughter, but more than that, he had
Damn.
memories of them
He got
that
gaslit
now
by the eel.
realized were in fact Krishnamurthy's memories.
Not
This
his.
realization causes
Okay.
him to finally understand exactly what SCP-3000 does. It breaks down and destroys human consciousness, the spark of thought that makes us unique and what we believe to be a soul, and then scatters it. It leaves a husk behind that is nothing more than electrical signals passing through matter that will someday become inert. He writes, "If even I can't remember myself, how can I expect anyone else to remember me? I have forgotten my own life, and I am strangely apathetic at this revelation. I will fade into the darkness, as thousands before me have, and thousands after me will. No one will care, as I am forgotten. I do not despair for my own sake, but for us all, you and I, we will all face obliteration. I am not important. You are not important. Vast droplets of irrelevancy, stretching eons in the sea of time. We may fight against
Alright, this is too edgy
but
for
our
me.
enemy is inevitability.
This eel is too...
I do not think that the
I don't
eel
know.
is Anantashesha. I don't think it would matter if it was. What is clear to me now, as I feel myself coming apart, is not that the eel is some mythological creature, or divine serpent. Perhaps it's just a primitive creature that eluded us, holding no malice. Perhaps it really is a primordial deity, harboring resent beneath the surface. The eel is not
I
the
like this
harbinger
picture
of my
right here.
demise, or humanity's doom.
That one looks scary.
The eel
Compared
is
to
not
the
the
other
end
pictures.
of all things. It only shows us what the end looks like. And in spite of everything we might believe, every ideal we hold or providence we pray for, I know this much is true for all of us. Our end will be a forgotten one." Dr. Manava was later discovered near the airlock after consuming a significant amount of raw Y909. Unresponsive, he was moved to Site-151 for analysis. SCP-3000 is a dark SCP,
Yeah.
and the concept of destroying memories and human consciousness makes what would otherwise just be an enormous eel much more interesting. Existential dread affects many people from time to time throughout their life, and it's not unusual to be concerned with who will remember you, what will they remember you for, and ultimately, your purpose here. Dr. Manava was probably right, that SCP-3000 is not a deity that exists throughout all of time, but it is certainly a powerful entity. There are many SCPs that can kill, or maim, or horrify humans, but there aren't that many that can destroy what it means to be human. and that makes SCP-3000 pretty unique.
Yeah. Yeah, I was alright, first, like, I got to like 10 minutes of it, and it was like, man, this is getting like way too long. This is just dragging. But like at the end, it's like, yeah, this SCP is way too deep. This SCP is way too dark, bro. Like SCP-3000 could have been just like a magic eel that, you know, that erases memory or messes up with your mind and stuff like that. But the way he kind of like went philosophical at the end, you know, instead of oh, it's just a mind melting kind of eel or whatever, right? Instead of that, they went way too deep on this one, way too dark. Yeah, you know, it's too edgy for me, but I like it. But yeah, that was Anantashesha SCP-3000 by Explorer series. It was solid. I like it.